What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we'll be going over the running backs that I believe are being taken too early in drafts. So we're obviously going to have a major focus on ADP in this one. Also, I won't be able to go over every single running back or even other positions in this video. So if you want to see all the players I'm avoiding as well as the ones I'm targeting the most, you can see that at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. So let's get things started off as usual with the stat of the day. Yesterday's stat was that there were 4 players with at least 250 scrimmage yards in a game last season, but only one did so twice. The answer was, of course, the king, Derrick Henry. Sawyer Hebbs was the first to get that on YouTube, and the Biggs was the first to get that on Twitter. Chase, I know you're technically first, but we do have a policy of not counting it if it's edited. We believe you guys, obviously, when you say you just misspelled it, but got to be consistent on that one. This win does put Sawyer into the Hall of Fame on YouTube now, and we also had Julian on Twitter enter the Hall of Fame over the holiday weekend. So congratulations to you guys. Still have a few people who are very, very close to getting all 10 right, especially on YouTube. So we might see a few more names added this month. And I've had people talk about subscriber leagues, right? I am fairly confident that at least one of the subscriber leagues I'm going to be in is people in the Discord, and another one, and maybe if we need more people, maybe a lot of people are entering stat of the day, is going to be the people who were in the Hall of Fame for stat of the day. So if you got into the Hall of Fame on stat of the day, I'm very likely going to make a subscriber league where you guys are in it. I think that's a good way to reward people for being active in stat of the day. But today's stat, and we'll of course go over that in the future. You know, the draft's not going to be probably until like the last week of August. We've got time to kind of fill in the winners there. So today's stat. What wide receiver scored the most full PPR points in a playoff game last season? Again, this is actual playoffs. I did the stat, I believe, for running backs already. This is actual NFL playoffs, not fantasy playoffs. What wide receiver scored the most full PPR points in a playoff game? All right, let's go over some running backs. And so I've done a video that's similar to this maybe a month ago. And in that one I listed Barkley, Jacobs, Ronald Jones, and Damian Harris as guys I'm personally avoiding. So since I've already done them, I'm not going to include any of those guys, but I'll say that my take hasn't really changed. I'm still not going after those running backs, but if you were expecting to hear their name, well, I'm not going to talk about them because I don't want to talk about the same players, but they would still be on this list. So let's go over some other players. Let's start things off with Nick Chubb. He's coming off the board as running back 10, 12th overall, and he's my running back 13, 17th overall. This might not seem like a massive difference, but when you're off by like 5 players in the early second round, that's a lot, right? This one really comes down to just likeliest outcome mixed with ceiling for me. I do think it is close to impossible for Nick Chubb to completely bust when he's healthy. But I can say that about basically every single running back going in the first 2 rounds. For all of these guys, we know they have a big role. We know that they're talented. We know, at least for everyone going the first 2 rounds, their offense isn't just completely terrible. It's still a decent offense, and this is why they're going early. We know they're going to be good. But for Chubb, my concern is that ceiling. I mentioned this when talking about Calvin Ridley recently. It may have even been yesterday for you guys, or maybe 2 days ago. But when I'm taking a player in the first 2 rounds, I need them to have top overall finish, so like the number 1 at their position, whatever position it is, well within their range of outcomes. Not someone who like, oh yeah, he could do it if literally everything breaks their way and there's multiple injuries. No, I need it to be like well within their range of outcomes that they can be the top overall player at their position. And for Chubb, I don't see it as the case. Again, he's super unlikely to bust. He's gonna be good. But he's also very unlikely to be the reason you win the championship. And that should never be the case for a player that's going 12th overall. I would love Chubb if Hunt was not there. And I genuinely believe he could reach that potential if Hunt was not there. But the reality is that Hunt is on the roster and is still, going to have a very large role and is going to have a very big impact on Nick Chubb. Chubb just doesn't have a single receiving touchdown since Hunt joined the Browns in 2019, and his targets per game is significantly lower when Hunt is active. He sees about 2.5 fewer carries, so it's not only the carries that go down, it's not only the targets, it's both of them go down. His volume decrease has caused his points per game to drop by 3 points, down to 15 when Hunt is active. And while 15 points per game is still very good and would result in him returning value, again, I'm questioning the ceiling beyond that. And he had 12 rushing touchdowns in 12 games last season, and he's already averaged 5.25 yards per carry in these last 2 seasons with Hunt. So for him to exceed value at his ADP, he's either going to need to see a boost in touches per game, which is unlikely while Hunt is healthy, or just be much more efficient, which is also unlikely. Like, his yards per carry can only go up so much. It's pretty difficult to score more than a touchdown per game. So you're asking a lot for him to be more efficient. If you're not giving him more touches, it's like, how on earth is he going to be the top overall player? And again, I know it sounds weird that it's like, well, I mean, he's not going first overall. He's going as the 10th running back. I get that. But for a lot of the players that are still on the board, I can see it. I can see a path for him to be the top overall running back. I just cannot see it with Nick Chubb. And when I look around at the players going around him, it's Mixon. These are players going after him. Mixon, Aaron Jones, Gibson, Najee Harris, Diggs, Hopkins, Ridley, Adams. You might not like Chubb ahead of all of those guys. I mean, even I don't. But everyone on that list is just as safe, and many of them do have a much higher ceiling because of their reception upside and the fact that, they're pretty much the only talented running back on the roster if we're looking at just those running backs. Like, obviously, none of them have a Kareem Hunt right behind him. So I don't think that Chubb is a horrendous pick. I don't think he's someone that you're just completely avoiding, because he could fall a few spots and become a value in the second round. But at 12th overall, it's far too aggressive for me, because the most likely outcome is that you end the season and you're like, he was fine, but there were probably players that went around him where you just much preferred having them because they were someone who contributed to a championship win. I don't think Chubb is going to be the reason you win. If he's the first pick and he's probably not the reason you win, that probably means he's going a little bit too early. Next up, got Trey Sermon, which will definitely surprise a lot of people, but he's coming off the board as the running back 27 in the late 6th round. He's my running back 30 with an 8th round grade. Sermon makes the list because not only do I have him projected as overvalued, ranked as overvalued, but his ADP is probably only going up, right? There are some players we can talk about and be like, they're overvalued, but we're pretty sure the community is going to catch on. They're going to pull back. His ADP will drop. I really only see Sermon's ADP going up from here, and it's already at a point where I don't think it's worth it, especially with this latest Athletic article naming him as the breakout player for the 49ers. Pretty much everything that's come out of camp has been like, well, Mostert's sidelined, and obviously Wilson is out, and so he's getting first team reps. He's looking really good because he is very talented. He's just a guy that can't really climb too much more in my rankings, unless, of course, like if Mostert got injured, of course he's going up in the rankings, or if he had an injury continue because he's missed some time, but an injury we're actually concerned about, he's out of preseason games. They don't know if he's starting the season. Well, if that happens, of course, Trey Sermon's got to go up ADP and he's got to go up in rankings. But assuming everyone kind of is healthy, I can see him moving into the 5th round for his ADP, and I genuinely think that's a mistake, and that his current ADP is a mistake. And it's basically because there's only so many content creators that a large percent of people are looking at, and basically all of them, if you follow the top guys, have said, I like Trey Sermon over Mostert. And so what's happened is Mostert's ADP is here, Sermon's ADP is here, and you see this happen. And when all of the content creators are saying that Sermon's really good, Sermon can be the guy, they're a run-first offense, they're a really good team, now Lance is going to be the quarterback, and they're going to be so efficient, you see it go up and up and up and up. And those videos stay on the internet. Those podcasts stay on the internet, right? And so people keep viewing them, and they don't realize that the initial take for a lot of people was when he was going in like the 7th, the 8th, the 9th round. I think I made a video maybe a month and a half ago where I talked about Sermon and was like, well, he's going kind of late in drafts, but now he's not, okay? And so in the 6th round, as it keeps climbing, where is the upside? It gets so much worse because when you're in the 6th round, maybe you're a little bit after the elite wide receivers are gone, maybe the quarterbacks are gone, and you're like, okay, I can get on board with Sermon. But as he moves closer to the 5th, you're still at that end of like the elite tier of wide receivers, and you're absolutely in the range where these quarterbacks have just a massive opportunity cost of avoiding them because they are guys that could absolutely win leagues. You take Sermon, and it's like the 49ers are still going to be a committee. The 49ers are not going to throw to the running backs that much, and so I know they're going to be efficient. I know they're going to run the ball a ton, but you are still taking a committee running back and one that we are not certain is going to be number 1 in the committee. And that's right now. Imagine what's going to happen to his ADP when it's confirmed that he's the starter, right? Does he go into the 4th round? Because this video comes out on July 7th? Most of you are not drafting right now. We're getting you prepared for the draft. And so you need to prepare for the chance that there are continuing positive reports. There continue to be people making videos talking about how good he is. His ADP is going to go up, and it's going to go up, and it's going to go up. So if I already have him as overvalued right now in the late 6th round, and I think his ADP goes into the 4th or the 5th round, I'm just warning you that it's probably not a fantastic pick as he keeps moving up because, again, the targets are probably not going to be there. They're not going to feature one running back, and I know they'll be efficient, but they're not the greatest team in all of football. They will still have a rookie quarterback, and so I'm probably not going to be on Trey Sermon this season as his ADP goes up. Of course, if I'm wrong, if his ADP starts pulling back into the 7th or the 8th round, well, now we can hop back on board. But where it is right now, it's a little bit overvalued, and it's probably going to keep becoming more and more overvalued. Another running back going a little bit too early is James Robinson. He is coming off the board as running back 30, late 7th round, but he's my running back 38 with a 10th round grade. To me, Robinson is an excellent pick if you're going RB0, which meaning, if you don't know, you're taking maybe Kelsey first, you're hammering out a bunch of wide receivers, you go for quarterback in the middle rounds, your roster is just awesome, and then you look at running back and you say, who could crush? Because James Robinson could crush this season. Imagine if Etienne went down and Robinson's the feats are back. Oh my goodness, the upside is jaw-dropping, easily a running back 1. But you can't take that in the late 7th round because you need an injury. And I don't know, maybe I'll put like a round, I'll really think about it. Like what round do we start taking people where we say, if there's an injury, they'll go off? Like what round is that cutoff for? But I'm thinking it's around round 10. And that's why I have him as a 10th round pick. Because if you were going in the 10th round and you've loaded up on all these other weapons and you're like, okay, now it's time to take my like super upside running back. Well, yeah, James Robinson's awesome. But in the 7th round, there's still starters. Like there's still really, really good players at all positions. So the opportunity cost is much higher. And if we think about it, it's like, yeah, massive upside if Etienne goes down. But what are the odds that Etienne suffers a season-ending injury? Well, they're not that high, right? We know Etienne's going to be used a lot in the receiving game. We know Laviska's going to be used in the receiving game. So right off the bat, we think Robinson, very, very low reception upside. Even looking at what he did last season, we know he's good in that area. Just because they have other players that they're going to use in that area, it limits his upside. So you're like, all right, well, he's only early downs. But like Etienne was taken in the 1st round. And I know they talked about wanting Kadarius Toney, but let's be honest, they were still very high on Etienne taking him in the 1st round. And so they're going to use him. And he's kind of a player that like, we don't want to target players that start off okay and kind of fizzle out. We want players who are going to start, I guess, mediocre. We like players that start strong and end strong. But if we're picking one of the two, it's either start good and end bad or start bad and end good. We want start bad and good. We want players who are going to have a slow start to the season but then get more and more of a workload and crush in the playoffs. We don't want someone like Robinson who has Etienne, Etienne's probably going to have a small role to start the season, but every single week his role is going to grow and grow and grow, and that's going to be at the expense of Robinson. So if Etienne doesn't get hurt, by the end of the season you have a 7th round pick that's mixing in for like single-digit carries and maybe a target or two. Even if it's a good team, it's just not enough to be viable. And so if he's going in the 7th round and he's probably not going to be viable in the playoffs unless there's an injury, it's too early for me. Another running back that is going a little bit too early is James Conner. He's coming off the board as the running back 35 in the 9th round, but he's my running back 43 in the late 11th round. Conner to me is just like a worse version of James Robinson, basically. Not that they're like have a similar skill set, but it's like what you're drafting, because you're basically drafting both of them assuming that there's a lot of upside if the starter goes down. But like obviously Conner is less talented than Robinson at this point in their careers, and Conner's role is likely going to be worse than Robinson's to start. Like Conner has been decent in fantasy in his time with the Steelers, but it's not like he himself has been a true difference maker. He's got a low true yards per carry, a low EPA. He's been pretty inefficient in terms of yards per touch. Like he's been good, but it was on a really good offense, and people just assume that his fantasy production has been there because he's really good. But realistically, like any running back getting work in Pittsburgh is going to be great in fantasy. I don't care how talented you are. You're going to be great in fantasy if you're getting work in Pittsburgh and you're not getting like little work. Like I'm saying, you're being featured. This is why we love Najee Harris, because we know that Najee Harris would do really, really well if he wasn't even that good, but he's good. So he's going to absolutely dominate, right? Conner is like fairly mediocre, and I think the running back market showed that, right? Like the Cardinals were able to sign him for 1 year, $1.75 million. That's less money than Mike Boone and Devontae Booker. That's pretty embarrassing. And it's the same money that Malcolm Brown and effectively the same as Cordero Patterson got. Like if Conner was expecting a large role or a larger role than these players, he would not have accepted the same or less money than that. The only thing you can say about Conner is that he's probably going to get the goal line work, but so what? Like Kenyon Drake was the goal line back last season, and he got a significant amount of work on early downs, but I don't want to say he was barely usable because he was still usable in fantasy, but he was for sure disappointing, right? So if you think that Conner gets, Drake's like 16 carries per week, sure, absolutely draft him. But it's far more likely that Conner's only mixing in for like 6 to 8 carries a week and is really just annoying to the value of Chase Edmonds, not really viable on his own. That makes him only a handcuff, only a piece that you target as like a high upside piece in an RB0 build, which is just like James Robinson, but that's fine to take in like the double-digit rounds, not the 9th round. And so in the 9th round, I just think the opportunity cost is a little bit too high. Again, pretty much no value while Chase Edmonds is healthy. And so 11th round, if he's going to fall, and he could. This is the thing. This is ADP. On average, he's going in the 9th round, but you could be in a draft where he's available in the 11th round. At that point, sure. Everything is contingent on where you're getting them. I absolutely think that if Chase Edmonds gets injured this season and James Conner is the starting running back, that he will be very, very viable in fantasy. He'll be someone you're very, very excited to draft. But basically, when you're picking, you're like, what are the odds that Chase Edmonds gets injured? That's the only chance that he has of being viable. And to me, that is not someone I take in the 9th round. I'm not taking my handcuffs or my high upside pieces in the 9th round. There are still incredible options if you missed out on the big 3 tight ends. If you want to take a tight end, there are some really high upside quarterbacks. If you missed out on those guys, there are still some undervalued wide receivers. And so this isn't a range where it's like there's absolutely nothing left, right? If you didn't come out with some of the elite quarterbacks or tight ends, it's a great spot to take them. And even at wide receiver, there are options. So wait, don't take James Conner in the 9th round where he's going. Wait until at least the 10th, preferably the 11th round if you really want to take him. Cannot sign off in the 9th round ADP. So those are some running backs that I believe are being taken too early in drafts. As always, I cannot go over every player in these videos. So if you want my take on other players, then you can always see my exact rankings, projections, targets, avoids, individual breakdowns, and a whole lot more if you want to see that at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, then how about hitting that like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.